Hey everybody, I'm Justin from Built and I got a fun new toy. Let's see how fast I can build it. Go. 39 minutes. It took me 39 minutes to build this. What did you build, Justin? Well, I built an Atomstack A5 M50 laser engraver. Yes, we are going to cut and do things with lasers today, and I'm very excited by that because I've never seen one of these before. I've never touched one. I've never used the software. So that's where we come to the core essence of today's video is, Justin, is a laser engraver easy to use and easy to learn the software, especially if you've never used any of that stuff before? And then what can I make with it that will incorporate into my existing workflow? How can I use it to make things easier for myself? Or how can I use it to make more money in my business? This thing is designed to be able to add personalization to your woodworking, and so that does always equal more money, but not if it is not easy to use. If this is something that takes a long time to add personalization, then time versus value, you know? So let's dig into it and see what we can do with sweet, sweet lasers today on Built. First, I'm going to take a look at the differences between a laser engraver and a CNC machine. Then we're going to look at the software a little bit and see how easy it is for me to pick up pretty quickly, hopefully. And then we're going to get into building some products and see how it can fit into the workflow, as long as I can actually understand the software. All right, so here's the quick and dirty on a CNC machine. Basically, you have a palm router with router bits that I already have in the shop, and it's attached to this gantry that enables it to move left and right and back and forth, and of course, up and down. Now you notice that came up very high. I mean, I have a few inches right here. So if I did put a very large bit in there, I could engrave into material that is pretty thick. So that is a definite advantage of this unit over here, is being able to do thicker material. Now, when I put something in here, I could put a block of wood in and say, cut me out this oval. So it can easily cut all the way through. Then I can turn it over and say, well, now I want you to cut out these pockets. So I can control the depth that we're going and not poke all the way through, but turn it into this poker tray right here. Very cool. It definitely helps with my workflow. There's a very small thing to note, which is it can only make rounded corners. And that's because you're using a cylindrical shaped bit. It cannot get to square. So it requires an additional step. On the off chance that you really do require it to be square, you'd have to take a chisel in there and square it up yourself manually. I rarely have to do that, but it's something that I wanted to point out. Now, you can then use a CNC to engrave, make signs. That's a huge usage for this thing. And so I'll bring this one closer. I had a Ukrainian refugee family that I brought over to live with us here in the United States. And so while they were staying with us, we were giving this out as a present to different people that were helping them out with things. And we would have their girls paint this before we would hand it out. Now this one was a throwaway one because we had lots of tear out in the letters and in the logo here. And that's because you can only get to a certain level of detail with a CNC machine because the bit is only so small and it's aggressively ripping away wood. So in this case, I made this too small and so it was causing a lot of tear out. Now when I hold this really far away, it becomes difficult to see, and that's because there's no contrast here. So when making a sign on a CNC machine, it does require multiple steps. Either people will paint this board first, run it through the machine, and then the contrast between the color of the wood and the exterior color is more than enough. Or you need to paint it after the fact or fill it with epoxy. So now the laser engraver. This looks exactly like my CNC machine. It's on a gantry that moves back and forth. Obviously it uses a laser instead of a router there. The router tears away material where this burns material with a high-powered laser. This laser, since it's burning, does generate smoke. So I have a fan here. So if you're using it out in the open like this, you need to open a window or a door and have a fan blowing off of it because it does create smoke. If this is something that you're going to use on a regular basis, then you can either purchase a folding tent that goes over this with a fan, and that's around like $75, or make an enclosure. If I decide to keep this, I'm going to make an enclosure in the shop and built it into a vent that pumps the smoke outside. So that is a hurdle that you should understand about this unit, is it does create smoke, unlike a CNC machine that just creates sawdust. This unit is a more affordable one. It's around $250 to $300 depending on the coupon that's out there on Amazon right now. So this is a much lower barrier to entry than a CNC machine is. This unit is a lower end, more affordable end one because of the laser. So this laser is a 5.5 watt laser, and the power of the laser dictates how much it can cut. The cut ability, though, is really subjective. So there are way more expensive units than this that are in the thousands of dollars that have much more powerful lasers that can cut through thicker things. But you will have to decide how this is going to fit into your process. I look at these and CNC machines as machines that overlap a little bit, but they are different. I look at the CNC machine as a mid-process unit, and this maybe more as a finishing process unit. So I hope that they're going to work together really well in tandem. Let's take a cutting board, for example. If I were to make a cutting board after the glue up, I would put it in the CNC machine. It would route in my drip tray. It would put in my handles. I would take it out, do the sanding, and then put it in this machine to do a burn where I put the family name on that cutting board, for example. The burn would give it contrast, so I wouldn't need to paint or put epoxy on there. You shouldn't put epoxy on a cutting board because the knife will dig up little epoxy flakes and then you're eating it. I like that this can then personalize this board that I'm conscious about, toxins on. And when it's done, I should just be able to lightly sand and put on my finishing coat. Should. I haven't done it yet, so we're going to have to see. But, from watching videos, that's what people do. So I'm excited to see if that's how it works into my flow. If that's the case, then this being a much less expensive unit than the CNC machine, I might want to go for something like this first, learn the software with this, and then it should be an easy transition over into the CNC software. They are very similar, hopefully. I'm about to find out. So I bet I can better answer this question a little bit later in the video. This machine was provided to me for free, so let you know that. I have no other commitments to them whatsoever. They just sent me one and told me to play with it. So you will get my unfiltered review as I only do on all of my stuff. It is not influenced in any way, and if I hate it, you're going to know it. Hopefully I like it. I'm excited to have one of these machines. So high hopes, but it will be measured hopes. I don't expect this one to be able to cut through 3/4 inch wood or more. I more look at this as a lower powered unit that I will be able to use for engravings primarily. But it does do a lot of other stuff. There are different materials it does, like glass and plastics, plexi, wood, of course, but then it does stuff like fabric too. That was an interesting one. I saw a video of girls putting jeans in here and like putting their names on their jeans and different designs and stuff. I've also seen leather go in here, and then you get a product that looks like you branded that leather, but it was simply done on this machine. I do poker tables quite frequently as like a custom thing that I build, and I usually have leather armrests that are padded that go around there. So being able to put that leather in here and then get a cool logo on there, that's awesome. That's something people will go for all over the place. Or being able to put the fabric that goes on the table and being able to put a 2-foot like moniker in the middle for like a family crest or something. Also very cool. So I see lots of really neat possibilities for this. And so let's get into the software. I'm going to go and watch a couple videos on YouTube on the software right now in hopes of being able to learn what to do. Who would have known that you would watch YouTube videos to learn something? Okay, so I watched videos for about an hour. I decided on a software called Lightburn to use for this process. I downloaded the software and in about 5 minutes had the laser set up and receiving commands from the software. So very quick and easy. I have already done what is called a test burn, and what that does is it makes a grid and it tells you speed and power. So you can look at this piece of wood as the item that I'm going to cut, and it just automatically did this. I didn't really have to do much. I just said test and go, and it cut this out. And so I can look at this and say that this bottom is too dark and it has some like burning spilling out. So you can kind of see a diagonal in here of you want to pick something that's as fast as you can go so you're not sitting around forever, but also at a good coloration. So I'm going to go at like 6,000 at 50% right here. And so I said, okay, let me just type a couple words in. So I typed a few words and I clicked the different couple settings, and we're going to see what happens. Make sure you put on your futuristic safety glasses because these lasers can destroy your vision. They are danger lasers. But let's see if, 5 minutes of using this program, I can do something. We'll see. It's been 24 hours since I first built this machine yesterday, and I've made a whole bunch of stuff, so let's go ahead and take a look at what I was able to make in my first 24 hours. The first thing I made was something really easy, business cards. I, didn't want to do a design or anything. I just said, all right, let me throw in some text and hit print and see what happens. So on the metal one, I just put some cool QR code up in the top, and I did some information. And on this one, this is actually a real business card, so I covered over my telephone number. I don't need you all calling me in the middle of the night here, but this was, I'm really happy with this. I'm excited to give this one out to people. This took 1 hour 45 minutes to engrave, and this took 8 minutes, same size. So it all comes down to what material you're using and what the power of the laser is. So this guy, 8 minutes, thin wood, no problem. I'd probably go with this a lot, but it is very cool that it can still do metal. The second thing that I chose to build was also simple, but I added another element to it. So this was a sign that I did for my wife. I painted it white first before I put it into the engraver. I wanted to see how the spill out would be, and I really only see a little bit here. And what you can do to clean that up is take a wet paper towel and go over it, and you should be able to clean it up. But I wanted to show it right now as it was when it came out of the laser. What I did was add a photo, or in this case, it's a Bitmoji. And so all I did was type out the words. It took me 10 seconds for that. And then I dragged the file of her Bitmoji and just dropped it on the screen, and it was done. I just hit burn and it was ready to go. This whole thing took 23 minutes to burn. A majority of that time was this because obviously it's moving very, very small increments so that it can get as detailed of a picture as possible. But this is pretty cool. I mean, you could throw a family photo on here and print one, this big on a piece of wood, and it would look pretty good. So after that, this isn't actually something I made. This is a whole string of failures afterwards. So I went through some process and I was really trying to cut things out. So I was doing a QR code on here and it cut it out way too much and I had the power too high, so it really disintegrated the wood all the way around it. The software Lightburn that I'm using has an amazingly cool QR code function. You literally just click the button, you paste in whatever you want, and it makes a QR code for you instantly. So you can do a QR code that'll have somebody join your Wi-Fi or go to your YouTube channel and hit subscribe, or add your contacts to their address book if you're using it like a business card. So, I started playing around with cutting and power settings. This was another business card that I tried to do. It was crooked when I put it in. And that was another thing that I kind of started focusing on, was instead of just placing it anywhere and then bringing the laser to it, you don't have any concept of what's crooked and what's not. So I ended up taking a square and centering the bed so that the bottom left corner was perfectly square to the laser. And so then I just started every single project in the bottom left corner, and I knew that if it was touching the two sides, okay, my wood is in the right place. So this one was a little bit crooked, and it was also a little light. Then I was really trying to cut through this 1/4-inch piece of wood, and I ended up giving up on this piece. However, I was successful on cutting through on both of these lines. And you'd say, well, if you cut through here, why didn't it cut through making the box? And that's because this is with the grain, and so I guess the laser separated the grain easier. Let's go with that. The verticals, you would have to cut all of the individual fibers going through, so it must be a little bit more resistive. I was eventually able to cut through the 1/4-inch ply. It takes about 6 passes, so 6 full circles in order to be able to take it out. I might not have the settings all the way correct. Like, again, this is my first day, so there's lots of trial and error when you first get one of these things. But once you figure out the settings, you end up keeping them. I started a spreadsheet, so as I figured out things that worked, that's what I kept. So that's where we go on to the successful part of this adventure. Was I was trying to cut out templates. So here I was like, okay, this is a small piece for a chair. I can do these really difficult angles on here perfectly. I'll be able to tape this down to something and take my palm router and a pattern bit and be able to run around and make this out of whatever thickness of wood I want. So this is an excellent option for making templates and patterns that you'll be able to use with a router. These were only cut out with 2 passes of the laser because it's a different material than that 1/4 inch ply. So these guys, I mean, they look great. I'm super happy with these. So this is definitely something that I would look to do with this laser, is making thin. It is thin, but it does make a good template when I need it. So my next thing was definitely something that is a heavy use for this, which would be to engrave a cutting board. So I actually had a cutting board cut off from one that I had recently made. So I said, well, rather than making a whole cutting board, I'm just going to use this guy for experimentation. So what I chose to do on this one, you'll see there's all sorts of stuff on here. I first shellacked this twice, and then I ran it through the laser. And that shellac ended up making all the smoke and stuff that appears around some of these burns. Totally didn't happen. So, like, good deal. So if you did partial finishing before you put it in the laser and then do your final coats, awesome. So this looks great. Very happy with this. Then what I tried to do was I tried to use some vinyl film on here. And this is something that I use on the CNC machine. So what I can do is maybe paint a board all black. I can then put vinyl film over it, and then when it goes through the router will cut away the vinyl film wherever it cuts the letters, and you can spray paint without worrying about getting the spray paint all over everything else. So I want to do the same over here. Unfortunately, this vinyl film, at least at the settings that I had, did not work at all. It still allowed it to burn through, but it didn't burn the vinyl to the point where I could use tweezers and pick it out or anything. So I'm a little confused by this one, and I'm going to chalk it up to my inexperience with this material. I then tried doing the same thing again with just regular masking tape, thinking maybe it's the vinyl. And same thing, like it cut out everything perfectly, but I couldn't get the sticky off. So that was very weird. So this is something I'm going to have to play with, but I am super happy with how the cutting board came out on this one. So now that I've gotten some pretty good results in engraving woods, I decided let me play around with some other materials that were there. So I pulled out some vegan leather. So it's fake leather that's plastic, right? But this is what a lot of stuff is made with now. So I engraved a monogram on here. I'm lighting it up from the back just so you can see it, but I'll get some close-ups of it. And I'm happy with it, but I think I probably had the wrong settings on there because it did completely cut all the way through to like the very backing fibers, and I'd like to leave some of that. So I think doing it again, I would play with lower settings just to emboss a little bit on here, but still it's very good looking. So this was something I was very interested in for when I'm making poker tables. I think clients would be very interested in being able to like personalize the leathers that we put around. Then I actually went and grabbed some real leather. This is impressive. I'm very happy with this. I've been stretching it and rubbing it and doing all sorts of stuff, and nope, this guy is perfect. It looks super crisp and clear, and I was actually hoping, I don't know, I might try and do something like that at some point, perhaps. But that was my idea when I was doing it. So leather, very good medium for this product. So item 7, I tried the whole jeans engraving thing. This is really hard to see. I'll have to do a close-up of this. And so what I have it saying is sawdust is man glitter with a picture of a tool bench. what I have to say about this, I was kind of disappointed in the jean material. After I cut it, I've been extremely gentle with it until right now while I'm filming. If I pull on it, yeah, it's just totally ripping apart the jeans. Like, woo. So perhaps I had it on the wrong setting, or perhaps this is just the wrong jean material. I went to a fabric store and specifically bought this for this, but I wouldn't want to do this to my jeans. Next, I wanted to start playing around more with those QR codes because I thought, ooh, this is really, really cool. So this one, I took a piece of hard maple and I made a subscribe sign right here. So if you were to hold up a camera to this, it would instantly take you to the Bittner-Built YouTube page and subscribe you over. So this is a neat product that can easily be displayed in your business or sold to other people as a product, where this took me under 2 minutes to design on that software. It was so easy. And then I hit print and it did it in 30 minutes. So also, again, very, very easy and very functional. This guy's probably going to live up on the wall over here during some of my videos. And then I played around too with doing like a business card one where I did a QR code. When you scan it, it puts all your information in. And you can even add in an item that goes in the person's notes about you. So you can even put something like the guy who makes really nice blank blanks, you know, like add in some sort of comment, almost like where he would know you from, and like he's so impressive, you know, something like that. But you get the idea. Like it's very useful that you could easily make these, and they're very nice and decorative. So I had fun with this one. The very last thing that I made, I wanted to actually make like a full project. I didn't want to do the little testy type of stuff that I've done so far. I was excited to see if I could challenge myself a little bit. I mean, this isn't that hard, but I made a welcome sign. And so where this was a slight challenge was I started with this round piece of wood. And this piece of wood is the end of a spool for heavy wire. So I had this laying around. You know, sometimes when you see a perfect circle of wood, you're like, I need to hold on to that for something. So I made use of it. Where it was difficult was it had all these holes in it all over the place. So I didn't want holes in my sign. So what I was able to do was measure the diameter of this circle, put it in the computer. And we all know how difficult circles are to cut out by hand. Even with machines, they're hard. So putting it in the computer, best way to make a circle. So I put that in. I also measured where all these holes were and put them in too so that I could see them. And then I made my design. Super simple, you know, a basic house structure. But I made sure that I covered over all of those holes. And then I just hit burn it. And it cut out all these pieces. Now this is 3 layers, so I made one file with the white stuff, and then I made another one with just the word here. And then I spray painted them different colors. But overall, from start to finish, from design and burning, this took me 1 hour, 40 minutes. So not an insane amount of time for a sign. Now, if I had a better design and better graphics and stuff like that, it could be something that I could sell on Etsy if I wanted to. So, like I said, this one's not that great. But it was a proof of concept for me on the very first day in using software that I'd never used before. Can I actually make, you know, a full project with this? So some final thoughts about this whole process. I kind of asked some questions at the beginning of this video. I was very interested to know how easy this was going to be. And I have to say that the software that I used, super easy. It has a ton of functionality to it that I have no idea yet. But in a very short time span, within like an hour of watching videos and playing around a teeny bit, I was able to type text, hit burn, and it burned the text on a piece of wood. And once you like are able to just get that first step where you created something, then you keep building, building, building. And over the course of 24 hours, I was able to make projects, burn cool things. And, you know, if I had made like a full cutting board, I totally could have just engraved the entire thing. I'm 100% positive in my capabilities with this machine as of right now. So would be fine spending a few hours making some like projects, putting it in here and hit go, and with relative certainty it's going to turn out pretty good. So that's great. And of course, there's a long way for me to go with learning with this software, but the main thing was I wanted to see if like people who might be a little bit averse to this stuff, if you're going to be able to get into it easy. And I would say maybe not as easy as me. Maybe I'm better at computers than you, but it certainly wasn't hard. So you might have a harder time than I did, but I don't see it as you're not going to be able to do it with a few days of watching some videos, going through some things, and hey, even shoot me an email. So I'm more than happy to answer questions for anybody who watches my stuff. I think that this type of machine has a place in some shops, not all shops. If you are the beauty is in the natural wood, I don't stain my stuff. Look at this handmade thing that I made with my hands. This isn't for you. If you're more somebody that does products for the masses, this is definitely for you. And everybody in between, it's just fun to play with. My wife and kids were just coming out here like crazy, like, what are we going to make next? Can you make this for my office? Ooh, can we do this? I have a really great idea for a gift. So this has a lot of appeal once you start playing with it and people get a lot of ideas in their head on what this thing can do. It's more functional than your typical tool that I bring home to review. This one I was excited for and everybody got excited for and what it could do. So that's really cool. Let's go ahead and talk about the machine itself. Since Atomstack was so nice to send this for me to review, I have some good things and some bad things to say. So good thing, it's simple. It doesn't need to have a whole bunch of other stuff. There's all these ones that are more expensive that have like a tablet attached to it and all sorts of... It hooks up to the computer and then the computer tells it what to do. That's it. I don't need anything else on here except for the emergency stop button, which I used a couple times not out of emergency, but because I screwed up. And so I needed to stop it before the screw up occurred on the product. So yay for the red button, right? This thing was super easy to build and it talked to the software, no problem. As soon as I plugged it in, the software saw it and said, oh, you have an Atomstack, here's the stuff, and it added it into the software. So it then controlled it and cool beans. Some negatives on this one. It came with a very small steel plate, much smaller than the unit itself. I mean, way smaller. So luckily, I had watched some videos beforehand and I had already purchased with my own money a honeycomb tray. And so the honeycomb tray also came with a giant steel plate. So to explain, the steel plate goes down to make sure that the laser doesn't destroy my tabletop here. And on this steel plate, I hit most of it. So this little steel plate doesn't cut it. Atomstack, you need a bigger steel plate. The honeycomb is for when you're cutting something. If you're engraving and it's sitting on this metal, that's fine. But if you're cutting and the laser beam is going through the product, because there's no gap between the product and this metal, all that ash and heat and smoke and everything has nowhere to go, so it ends up dirtying the bottom of your project. Whereas if it's sitting on this honeycomb, there's a place for it to go and you get a cleaner cut. Cleaner being the real word, not like our normal wood talk. Cleaner in this case means there's no dirt on it. And especially if it's like a painted item, you don't want that on there afterwards. So this honeycomb, if you're making cuts, you want a honeycomb bed. Also, Atomstack did not include safety glasses with this. And I was really surprised by that. When I opened the box to assemble yesterday, I was like, where's my safety glasses? And I had to quickly order from Amazon, so I got them this morning for some of my stuff. I luckily had a piece of safety plexi that I bought for when I built an enclosure, so I was literally holding up this big piece of plexi when I'm looking at stuff. It was a little bit ridiculous. But safety glasses, so those should be included. The unit itself really did a phenomenal job at engraving. I can't say this enough, and honestly, if you're looking at a unit, I wouldn't go any more expensive than this one. This one is the right price to me because they're all the same size. When you look at these on Amazon or elsewhere, they're all pretty much the exact same size. The only difference is maybe it has a computer tablet portion to it. Maybe it has an air assist, which you can buy that to add to this. That makes a cleaner cut. It blows air while it's doing it. Or it has a more powerful laser. It's really the laser is the bulk of the price difference on all of these. So the higher power lasers are only for cutting. Higher power isn't going to do any better on engraving. So this one's great. So if you're interested in engraving, don't blow your money on something crazy expensive. This is perfectly fine. If you want to be able to cut thicker stuff, these diode lasers, which is what this classification of laser engravers are, you're typically starting to max out at like 1/2 inch plywood. There are some that can get to 3/4 inch, but there's a lot of mismarketing out there on these units, for what I see. So typically you're looking at a CO2 laser so a much higher tier price, different laser when you're going to be cutting thicker material. So bear that in mind. If you're in this category and you're trying to stay under $1,000, go low. Like, this guy did a great job engraving. I'm super happy with it. And I'm going to keep this one, and that is what it's going to be for. I'm not going to cut with it. I have a CNC machine. CNC machine's for cutting. This is for engraving. So as long as I come at this with that type of viewpoint, I think this is a great machine and worth its money. All right, so that was my video on adding a laser into the shop. It's definitely for some people and it's definitely not for other people. But overall, I think it's really fun. So it adds some cool new functionality to projects that you can make. I hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, please like and subscribe if you did. It's what's going to help our channel grow. We're just shy of hitting 5,000 subscribers for my first month. I just crossed 1 month yesterday. So thank you very much, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe in the shop, and I'll see you in the next one.